stop looking at the sky. Everyone is terrified of the mushroom cloud, the sirens, the flash of light that ends it all. But that is exactly what they want you to focus on, because while you are staring at the horizon, waiting for a missile that might never come, the real war has already walked through your front door. It is in your pocket, it is in your bank account, and it is sitting at your dinner table. And the terrifying truth is that World War III isn't an event that is going to happen in the future. It is a process that started years ago, and you are already a casualty of it without even realizing you've been hit. If you are the kind of person who wants to know what is actually happening behind the curtain, rather than just being scared by the headlines, you need to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell right now. We dig deep into the stories the mainstream media is too afraid or too confused to touch. And trust me, you are going to want to be notified for the next part of this series, because what we are uncovering today is just the tip of the iceberg. So go ahead, click that button, join the community, and let's get into the real plan. Most people have a movie, script version of how the next global conflict plays out. We imagine tanks rolling across borders in Europe, fighter jets screaming over the Pacific, and guys in war rooms pointing keys to launch nuclear ICBMs. That is the 20th century model of warfare, and frankly, it is obsolete. The generals and strategists running the show today know that nuclear war is bad for business. If you turn a country into a sheet of radioactive glass, you can't use its resources, you can't enslave its labor force, and you can't tax its economy. The goal of war has never been destruction. The goal of war is always control. And in the modern age, you don't need to blow up a city to control it. You just need to turn off the lights, empty the grocery stores, and make the people within that city distrust each other so deeply that they tear the place apart themselves. This isn't a conspiracy theory. It is a documented military doctrine known as fourth-generation warfare, or unrestricted warfare. The idea was formalized decades ago by military strategists who realized they could never defeat the West on a conventional battlefield because our military budget was just too massive. So, they decided to change the battlefield entirely. They moved the front lines from the trenches to the stock market, the electrical grid, and the algorithms that feed you information every single day. The scary part is that this plan relies on the fact that you won't notice it is happening until it is far too late to stop it. Think about the last 5 years. Does the world feel more stable, or does it feel like everything is slowly coming unglued? That isn't an accident, that is the strategy. Let's look at the first phase of this silent invasion, which is economic destabilization. In a conventional war, you bomb a factory to stop production. In this new war, you disrupt the supply chain so the factory can't get parts. We saw a preview of this recently, didn't we? Ships stuck in ports, shelves empty of basic goods, prices of lumber and microchips skyrocketing out of nowhere. Most people wrote this off as bad luck or bureaucratic incompetence. But military analysts look at it and see a stress test. It was a probe to see how fragile the system really is. When you can't buy car parts, you can't get to work. When you can't get to work, you can't pay your mortgage. When you can't pay your mortgage, the banks panic. It is a domino effect that creates chaos without a single shot being fired. The enemy doesn't need to sanction us. They just need to introduce friction into the gears of our economy until the engine seizes up. But economic pain is just the softening up phase. The real weapon, the one that should keep you awake at night, is the attack on critical infrastructure. I want you to imagine a scenario that is entirely possible and frankly overdue. It's a Tuesday in November. You wake up, reach for your phone, and there is no signal. You think maybe the cell tower is down. You go to turn on the lights, and the power is out. You figure it's a storm. You go to your car to drive to the coffee shop, and the traffic lights are all dead. It's a grid-down scenario. Now, in the movies, this lasts for a few hours and the hero fixes it. In reality, modern cyber warfare targets the scarcity systems, the computers that control the physical machinery of the power grid, the water treatment plants, and the natural gas pipelines. If a state-sponsored hacking group, and there are armies of them working around the clock right now, manages to not just turn off the grid, but physically destroy the transformers through code that causes them to overheat and explode, we aren't talking about a blackout for a day. We are talking about months. The United States and most of the West does not keep spare giant transformers lying around. They have to be custom, built and shipped, usually from overseas. If the power goes out for 3 months, society as you know it evaporates in about 3 days. No refrigeration means no food. No pumping stations means no water coming out of your tap and no toilets flushing. This is the kinetic effect of a cyber weapon. They don't need to bomb the dam. They just need to hack the floodgates to open and flood the city, or keep them closed and dry up the water supply. It is clean, it is deniable, and it creates a level of panic that no bomber fleet could ever achieve. However, even that scenario is still too physical, too obvious. The true genius of the plan for World War III lies in the psychological domain. This is where it gets personal. This is where you realize that you are the target. The concept is called cognitive warfare. The objective is not to capture territory, but to capture minds. If you can demoralize a population, confuse them, and make them hate their own history and their own neighbors, you don't need to invade them. They will destroy themselves. Look at the polarization in society right now. Every issue is a life or death struggle. Families are breaking up over political disagreements. People are retreating into echo chambers where they only hear what they want to hear. Do you think that happened naturally? We know for a fact that foreign intelligence agencies run massive bot farms, thousands of fake accounts posing as local citizens, designed to amplify outrage. If a controversial event happens, these bots are programmed to jump on both sides of the argument and scream the most extreme, hateful rhetoric possible. Their goal isn't to help one side win. Their goal is to make the middle ground disappear. They want you angry, exhausted, and distrustful of every institution. Why? Because a divided nation cannot fight a war. If half the country hates the other half more than they hate a foreign adversary, the war is already over. The invader can just walk in and be greeted as a liberator by one side or the other. This is the house divided strategy, and it is being executed with military precision on your social media feed every single day. You have to ask yourself, have you felt it? That low-level anxiety that everything is fake. That exhaustion from the constant news cycle of doom. That is the feeling of being under siege. It is psychological artillery shelling, and just like soldiers in the trenches eventually get shell shock, our society is developing a collective form of PTSD. We are becoming numb to crisis, which is dangerous because when the real, final blow comes, we might not even react. We will just scroll past it, thinking it's just another headline, until the reality is kicking in our front door. So, how does this transition from the cold phase to the hot phase? What is the trigger? The plan likely involves a manufactured crisis that forces a reset. This is where the curiosity turns into genuine dread. Strategic analysts talk about a concept called the gray zone. This is the space between peace and total war. We are in the gray zone right now. The transition out of it usually involves a proxy conflict that spirals out of control, or a false flag event that justifies a massive crackdown. Imagine a scenario where the internet goes dark globally for 48 hours. The official story is a massive solar flare or a coordinated terror attack. During those 48 hours, financial records are wiped or altered. Stock markets are frozen. When the lights come back on, the wealth of the middle class has been decimated, and the only solution offered is a new, centralized digital currency that is fully trackable and controllable. This isn't science fiction. Central banks are piloting these currencies right now. In a time of war, money is freedom. If you control the money, you control the population. This financial reset would be the ultimate act of warfare, stripping the enemy population of their economic independence without dropping a single bomb. This brings us to the big twist of this story. We always assume that in World War III, the government will try to protect us. We assume the military will be deployed to secure the borders and keep the citizens safe. But in a fourth-generation war, the survival of the state often comes at the expense of the citizen. The plan isn't necessarily to save you. The plan is to save the structure of power. We have seen contingency plans declassified from the Cold War that show the government is fully prepared to abandon major cities, declare martial law, and suspend the Constitution to ensure the continuity of government. In this modern context, with the threat of biological weapons or cyber grid collapse, the protection measures might look a lot more like imprisonment. Travel restrictions, digital IDs to buy food, curfews enforced by automated drones. The war effort becomes a war on internal dissent to keep the ship from sinking. But here is the thing that they didn't count on, and this is where the story shifts. They didn't count on the resilience of the human spirit and the inability to fully control the flow of information. Despite the algorithms, despite the censorship, people are waking up. Channels like this, communities like the one we are building right now, are the resistance. Not a resistance with guns, but a resistance of awareness. The moment you realize that the outrage you feel is manufactured, it loses its power over you. The moment you realize the scarcity is artificial, you start to prepare instead of panic. The entire plan for this silent World War III relies on the element of surprise and the ignorance of the victim. By simply understanding the tactics, economic sabotage, cyber warfare, cognitive manipulation, you are building a mental shield that they cannot penetrate. They want you isolated, scared, and dependent. The counter move is to be connected, prepared, and self-reliant. It sounds simple, but it is revolutionary. When you start growing a little bit of your own food, or learning a trade, or building a local network of neighbors you can trust, you are physically removing yourself from the battlefield they have designed. You are becoming a ghost in their machine. They can't collapse your economy if you don't rely entirely on their system. They can't starve you out if you have a pantry. They can't demoralize you if you know their game. We are standing on the precipice of the greatest shift in human history. The old world is being dismantled, and there is a rush to define what the new world looks like. The elites have a plan for it, and it involves you owning nothing and being happy about it. But that plan only works if we let it. The real World War III is a race for the future of humanity, and the soldiers are not in uniform. The soldiers are you and me. It is a battle between centralization and freedom, between the artificial and the real. I want you to think about something for a second. Why are they trying so hard to distract you? Why the constant stream of celebrity gossip, meaningless political theater, and fear-mongering? It's because they are afraid of what happens if you actually focus. If millions of people stopped looking at the shadows on the wall and turned around to see who was casting them, The game would be over in a day. The power they have is entirely an illusion based on our consent. We consent to use their currency. We consent to consume their media. We consent to play by their rules. World War III is essentially a war to ensure we never withdraw that consent. So, as we wrap this up, the question you have to answer isn't, where is the nearest fallout shelter? The question is, how do I become ungovernable? Not in a lawless way, but in a way that means you cannot be manipulated. How do you secure your mind, your family, and your resources so that no matter what switch they flip, your lights stay on? This is a heavy topic, and I know it can feel overwhelming, but knowledge is the antidote to fear. If you found yourself nodding along to this, or if you had a, "Wait, that makes sense," moment, then we are on the same wavelength. I want to know what you think. Do you feel the shift happening? Have you noticed the artificial friction in the economy, or the forced polarization in your social circles? Drop a comment down below with your specific observation. I read through them, and the stories you guys share are often more insightful than any intelligence report. Also, this is the kind of message that gets suppressed. The algorithm doesn't like it when we talk about the man behind the curtain. So if you think this is a conversation that needs to happen, share this video. Send it to a friend, a family member, or that one person you know who senses something is wrong but can't quite put their finger on it. Be the one to wake them up. And finally, if you haven't already, smash that subscribe button. We are going to keep digging, keep exposing, and keep preparing. The world is getting crazy, but we don't have to go crazy with it. Stay safe. Keep your eyes open, and I'll see you in the next one.